evening and welcome to the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant in downtown Charleston at 17 Lockwood Drive for this week's Coaches Show with the head coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, head coach Brent Thompson, as we get ready for the Citadel hitting the road Saturday, taking on ETSU in the Southern Conference. Also recap the latest Bulldogs win this past Saturday against Mercer and a whole lot more over the next hour. You can always join the conversation. Use the hashtag AskCoachBT on Twitter. We'll try to get to some of those questions later on in the show with you till 8 o'clock here from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant. Coach, good evening. How are you?
Well, a little bit of a tough day today. We had the certain passing of Coach Taff. Just a rough day for Citadel football and all of our fans and of course, the program. I spoke to the kids about it today. We will do something to commemorate Coach Taff here soon. Unfortunately, he went too quickly. And he was a great football coach. And as I put it, he's probably the standard around here. He's a guy that did it and did it the right way and found a way to win a lot of football games here. And he won a lot of Division I games. I mean, you talk about that FBS board, that's most of those are his wins. And I love the way that he did it. I was an admirer of him long before I even got here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's how I did want to start tonight with Coach Taff sadly passing away today at the age of 69. And as you mentioned, some of those wins, beat South Carolina, beat Army twice, beat Arkansas, beat Navy twice, had the number one team in the country in 1992, and overall went 55-47 during his time at the Citadel from 1987 to 1995. Also coached in the Canadian Football League, was at UCF, was at Maryland, a few other stops along the way for Coach Taff, who unfortunately passed earlier today. So our thoughts and prayers to his family and everybody in the Citadel Bulldogs athletics family as well. What were in your years here at the Citadel, what were your interactions? Did you have interactions with Coach Taff? What were those like?
Well, my interactions with Coach Taff go all the way back to 2001. Coach had just gotten out of the Canadian League and he had gotten to Maryland and they'd won the ACC championship with Coach Friedgen there. I had been working at Northeastern. I was recruiting the Maryland, D.C. area, so I worked the Maryland camp. For about 4 days, I had gotten to see Coach work. He was the offensive coordinator at Maryland at the time. He was the quarterback's coach there. I was at Northeastern. I wasn't even in the triple option offense. So I was admiring Coach. When I had gotten to Bucknell, I had started to learn a little bit more about the history of the triple option and Coach Taff, and became a huge admirer of him when I was there. And when I had gotten here, I'd known all about him already. I didn't have an opportunity to meet Coach Taff until about 2 years ago. I met him at a funeral. And we spoke for a little bit of time. It was very interesting. After my first year as the head coach here, I had sat down and we had just lost this, just about December or so. We had just lost to Wofford in the second round of the playoffs. And I sat down and I collected I was the only one in the office. It was about a day or two after we had lost. And I had hammered out an email to Coach Taff and really just in admiration of what he had done there, mostly because he was able to sustain such success. He had 6 winning seasons in 10 years, which is very difficult at any military school, especially ours. And I hammered out an email to him, hopefully one day wanting to catch up with him, and found out how he did it, and what was the secret. So after that first year, I spent about the next 2 or 3 months just talking to as many of those guys that played for him to figure out exactly what the secret was. And really, it came down to this: he held the guys very accountable to the Corps Cadets. He ran a good, solid, clean program. He was very, very tough on them. He wasn't going to let them get away with anything in the Corps or on the practice field, and he was a guy that was going to do what he did offensively, run the football and stop the run, and that really became a lot of what we were doing, a lot of what we wanted to do, and a lot of what we became over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, and hopefully we'll continue on from here on out. So a lot of those things that Coach Taff believed in, we believe in as a staff. And when I said it I had an opportunity to talk to Brian this afternoon, Coach's son. I left him a message yesterday in hopes that he would have gotten it, and Brian did tell me that he did get it. He was able to read it to Coach before he passed last night or this morning, and the gist of the message was this: you are the standard around here. We have a lot of admiration, and really, if it wasn't for you, the rest of this staff, Coach Houston would have never been hired here. We would have never been hired or retained here. So we have a lot to owe him for everything that he had done here. And, of course, we wanted to make sure that we sent all of our condolences from Citadel football. So, once again, we want to send all of it out there. to his family and, of course, all of his players as well.
Certainly. Yeah, well said, Coach. And I know that former players have put together the Charlie and Jan Taft Scholarship here moving forward for walk-on players for the Citadel. So sad day for the Bulldogs football family and just athletics family with the passing of Coach Taft today, to try to transition to now what we have seen from this current football team and the win against Mercer, and we'll get ready for the game this upcoming Saturday against ETSU. Let's first go back to that win against Mercer Saturday. Homecoming weekend, packed house, and a sellout crowd for the VMI game. But this past weekend, another big crowd, and they certainly had a lot to cheer about in that homecoming crowd. We'll get to the details of the game and the win, but what was homecoming like as the coach down on the sidelines with that crowd, the win, and everything that went into it this past weekend? Well,
as I explained last week, homecoming is one of the best games here. There's no doubt about it. You got all the classes on the field pregame. You've got all of them up in the stands. It's a pretty wild atmosphere up there. You look up into the Altman Center. It's 3 and 4 deep. You've got the Corps Cadets on one side. It's a tough place to play. I always look forward to it. The game day atmosphere, the leading up to the game can be challenging, as we discussed last week, as far as keeping the team as far away from all the commotion as possible. But you got to enjoy that emotion, and you got to enjoy all of it that goes on when you're actually at the game.
You're now 4-0 on homecoming. You just beat Furman on their homecoming. Do you want to see if we could get the alumni to come back every week?
There's no doubt about that. We feel pretty good about those homecoming games. We got to work on some of those others, though.
Well, in the other games over the past month, teams been playing well. 3-game winning streak. The latest is that victory against Mercer. What's been the biggest difference you've seen from your guys the last couple of weeks compared to even just the start of the year?
Well, number one is we've faced adversity the last couple of weeks. We've turned the ball over in the red zone against Furman. We didn't get down about it. We didn't give up a touchdown. The defense rallied back, got the ball back, and those are really signatures of a good Citadel football team, being able to come back even when you're down and you're up against the ropes a little bit. So defensively, they've done a great job of being able to rally the troops back again. Don't let it get you down. Get a stop, get a punt, we'll get the ball right back again. Now, the second thing happened to us just this time around, and it was on the offensive side this time around. We give up the strip fumble. A little bit of adversity hits us, and the next thing you know, we're struggling. We're fighting a little bit. We had all the momentum on our side. We were able to get the ball back, get the kickoff back, and travel back down the field and score a touchdown and regain the lead. So now the adversity that we've been able to overcome has really been the one thing that I've seen a lot of growth in. If you go back to the VMI game, we shut down a little bit there. If you go back to the Towson game, we shut down after we had an opportunity to be able to win that football game. And the same thing with Elon. We had every opportunity to be able to tie that game going to overtime and possibly win that game as well. But I see growth. I see growth on the defensive side, especially where we were a little bit younger.
Yeah, I want to follow up on a few different things you mentioned. And the first was that I had marked down about overcoming adversity, not only scoring after that turnover, but an 8.5-minute drive, 16 plays, 81 yards. You put together a great drive. And both times you fell behind Saturday, you came back and scored in the very next possession to take the lead, including right before halftime. It looks like there's not much time left to do anything. And in 2 plays, you go down the field and you get that great touchdown catch from Riley Webb, and you take the lead into the half.
Yeah, that's 2 years in a row we were able to score. And that was one thing that we talked about. When you talk about all the analytics, the number one least used possession is the possession before half. Is if you don't get an opportunity to score on that possession, we're always trying to score on that possession right there. Whether we're trying to trick play like we did against Furman, or whether we're trying to methodically move the ball down and don't leave them with any time on the clock, is you want to maximize all of your possessions, and that's what we've been trying to do all year long. It worked out in our favor this year. That created a lot of momentum. We come out at a halftime, that's a 14-point swing. We get another score because we were getting the ball back, and that's where I felt, man, we're going in the right direction. We're feeling good about ourselves. And then the next possession, we turned the ball over, and that kind of shut us down a little bit. And that could have really cost us the football game if we didn't battle right back again.
As you said, you scored right before half, got it to start the second half, which is like the classic Bill Belichick with the Patriots, the 2 scores surrounding halftime. They always defer. You've won the coin toss now every game this year, knock on wood, and you've deferred the last 3 games to get it in the second half. Big turning point against Mercer. What goes into that decision to decide whether you want the football first or take it to start the second half?
Well, the biggest thought is this, do we want to try to pin them deep? And you always talk about that first possession. Well, this week it was more about they had a freshman quarterback. And when you had a freshman quarterback, make him operate and make him flip the field on you. We had him in a 3rd and long. We gave up a 3rd and long right there. They were able to flip the field on us. they tried to kick the field goal, missed the field goal on that drive. We traveled down and got 7-0. So it worked out in our favor, but didn't work out exactly like we were talking about. In the Furman game, it was more probably driven by the weather. Which way did you want to take the ball? So for us, we wanted to take the ball in the second half right there and kind of get the first drive after the adjustments are made. So some of it's a little gut feeling, some of it's how you're feeling, and do you want to set the tone on offense, or do you want to try to set the tone and get the field position on defense? We go into the probably the game. I talked to Coach Grantham and talk a little bit about what do we want to do. How does he feel about the defense getting a hold right there, and whether we want to get a stop or not. So typically I do like to defer, but we've gone and we've taken the ball a few times.
The other thing you brought up is your defense, not only bouncing back after turnovers, but doing a good job inside the red zone. And your defense is actually first in the conference on allowing the lowest amount of touchdowns on red zone possessions, a touchdown in just 58% of the trips for the opponent inside the 20. And of late, have only surrendered a touchdown on 6 of the last 12 trips into the red zone, 50%, which is really good. What has gone into the defense being so tough inside the 20, keeping the opposition outside of the end zone?
Well, it brings a smile to my face because really that is a hallmark. We know we're going to give up yards. We just don't want to give up points, and we don't want to give up 6 points. As if we give up a field goal, we think we got a chance to win. Field goals don't get you beat very often, so we feel pretty good about that. Number one, I think, is just the understanding of the overall defense. We have a high-pressure defense. We're going to try to get some negative yardage plays. When you don't have to hold up in coverage as long, it's a little bit easier to be able to get negative yardage plays and get pressure on the quarterback. Which is what happens when the field shrinks. The second thing that happens is you're also trying to force the run. We should be good at stopping the run. We're a run-oriented offense. It is our number one goal when we hire a defensive guy and we get the defensive unit in there. The number one thing is stop the run, make them one-dimensional, make them throw the football to beat you, all right, and make them travel the field and make them try to force the ball in the end zone and kick field goals. So I think the defensive philosophy is coming along. I love what Coach Grantham is doing and the defensive staff. Create as much pressure as they possibly can.
The other thing you mentioned earlier this week that you liked Saturday and maybe even during this winning streak, not only overcoming some adversity, but the physicality from your team as well. Now, what does that mean when you say that your team has become more physical of late? What does that look like? What are you looking for out in the field that you like from your team?
We control both lines of scrimmage, number one. This week, we controlled both lines of scrimmage, but we also controlled the perimeter, which is not, it hasn't been really where we wanted it to be. We need to control it with the wide receivers. We need to control it with the A-backs. I thought both groups did a phenomenal job of blocking on the perimeter. It gets very difficult when teams know you're going to run it inside the box. You got to stretch the box. You got to make a team cover all 53rd in the third yards of the field. In order to do so, you're going to have perimeter blocking. In order to do so, you're going to have perimeter threat. In order to do so, you're going to have to be able to throw the ball on a play action off of it as well, which is what we've been able to do. Raleigh Webb has provided that dimension for us, not only in the run blocking game because he does a great job, but also he's a deep threat, so people don't want to support the run as much. The A-backs have done a good job of catching the ball as well, but they're also doing a much better job of being able to set up blocks on the perimeter and block people on the perimeter. Those things are difficult to do. You noticed early on in the game we were running the ball to the perimeter. Late in the game we were hammering the ball back up and inside. It worked and flipped for us this week. We wanted to try to hammer the ball back inside late in the day when we warm out a little bit.
Would you say that was similar to at the end of last year? You saw that physicality from your team when you finished the 2018 season on such a high note?
Absolutely, especially in the Charleston Southern game. We were pretty good on the edge. We were pretty good on the perimeter. Sometimes it's just a mindset. Sometimes it's going out there with the will, want, and desire to do it. And I thought we had it, and I thought we had it last Saturday.
Coming off that win against Mercer, and in that game, you rushed for a season-high 378 yards. You've actually set a season-high now 3 straight weeks in these victories, and you ran the football for 5.6 yards per carry. No matter who you were handing it off to, what you were doing offensively, it seems like every run play was successful. What worked so well for you offensively to be able to run it like that against Mercer?
Well, I think it goes into what I was talking about, and that was we had a couple of we really scared the perimeter a little bit. We scared the deep ball a couple of times, even though we had one called back. That backs a lot of people up, and we had opportunities to be able to get a couple more of those deeper balls out there. We're going to take our 5 or 6 shots a game, and when we do, we got to make them count. And unfortunately, we had the holding call that took 7 points off the board, but it backs people up. It backs you up on the perimeter. It makes you think twice, and then when you've got some pretty good blocking A-backs coming out there, and I think Remus does a good job of not only he's doing a much better job of blocking, but he's setting up his blocks on the perimeter when he's the perimeter runner. So he's teaching us a little bit about what it's like to be on the perimeter running.
You scored, your offense scored on all 5 possessions, and there were 5 touchdowns. All 5 times you got inside Mercer's 40. So on the flip side of your defense being so good in the red zone, what led to your offense, and how important is it to turn those into touchdowns once you cross midfield?
Well, back in 2017, I thought we were an awful red zone offense, and we put a lot of time into how do we want to handle red zone from here on out. And we've done a lot of different things. We've done more formations than we have. We talked about that last week. We found a way to be able to run the quarterback, even though there's times where you probably shouldn't run the quarterback. But when you got a guy like Brandon, I think he is a pretty good runner. He can find seams in there. He's a tough, hard-nosed runner. You got Clay in there. He can be a good nose runner. And now all of a sudden you got a perimeter game. You become a lot more dangerous in there. Also, what you got to go back to is the Western game. Is we had 2 red zone throws in there that really backed people up in the red zone as well. We tried one red zone pass this past week, backed him up. I thought we had a chance to get it. They covered it fairly well. Brandon ran it. So he's doing a good job of taking care of the football and don't put the ball in a bad situation in the red zone as well.
Time for our first break here tonight from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant in downtown Charleston at 17 Lockwood Drive. We'll come back, continue to break down Saturday's win against Mercer with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, and later on in the hour turn our attention to Saturday's game at ETSU. But time for our first break. Come back with more here from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant with the Coaches Show on ESPN Radio, 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Mark Lee became the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq, sacrificing his life for our freedoms and his SEAL teammates. America's Mighty Warriors was born out of Mark's challenge to pass on the kindness, the love, the precious gift of human life. We honor our troops and Gold Star families by providing programs that assist recovery after injury or loss. Partner with us by making a generous donation. America's Mighty Warriors, supporting our troops and the families of the fallen.
At Ashley Home Store, we believe that wherever life's journey takes you, style can be affordable. Discover great savings and get 72-month special financing on the latest designs. Rethink, refine, renew your home with Ashley Home Store. This is home.
Charleston Crab House has been serving locals and visitors alike for the last 20 years. We have our crispy whole flounder. We have the seared ahi tuna. You name it, in the seafood business, we have it.
Be sure to stop by the Tiger and Leaf Lounge whenever you visit our locations. We have many frozen and specialty drinks, awesome margaritas. One of my favorites is the Wapu Punch.
If you don't like it down in the historic district, come over to James Island, sit on the Intercoastal Waterway. It is an unbelievable view where it's southern seafood at sensible prices and a darn good time.
It's hard to get something right the first time, or even the 25th. To become an expert requires a lot of hard work. But ultimately, the more experienced you are, the better you become. The doctors and team at Roper St. Francis Healthcare are the area's most experienced. We mend the most adult hearts, we perform the most joint replacements, and we treat the most adult cancers. When it comes to what matters most, your health, choose the most experienced team. Roper St. Francis Healthcare. Experience matters.
Seals Outboard has been selling quality products for over 50 years. Products like Sea Hunt Boats with its exclusive Carolina Flare Vortex hull design for the driest, smoothest, most comfortable ride on the water. Located in Mount Pleasant and Charleston, Seals Outboard is a 5-star certified dealer for Yamaha outboards. Your boating adventures are endless in possibilities with a boat from Seals Outboard. See us at sealsoutboard.com.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans.
and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Back at the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant in downtown Charleston for the Coaches Show. The head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, and still recapping that victory from Saturday against Mercer, the third straight win for the Citadel, now over 500 and heading to ETSU this Saturday for a road conference game, trying to keep that streak alive. Continuing to recap that win against Mercer, though, and Coach, as you mentioned in the opening segment there, Mercer getting the football first, driving down the field, putting together a long drive, but could not finish with any points. It was nearly a 9-minute drive, 16 plays, missed the field goal, so they ended up with no points. You get the football back. How important was that early on that even though they used up more than half the quarter, came away empty-handed, and you guys were able to score first?
I'll tell you what was in my thought process at the time was I've got their game plan. I know what they're going to do now is they're going to eat clock. They're going to chew this thing all the way down. If you noticed, they were checking and rechecking. Tony was rechecking and checking on the offensive side going against our defense. So it was an interesting back and forth. They had no concern over the clock at all. I mean, it was getting down to 1 or 2 seconds every single time. So I kind of felt they were playing their own game against us, and that was they were going to chew enough clock to be able to keep our offense off the field and keep their offense going down the field and just play a low-scoring ball game as we do. So I did become a little bit concerned after the first drive. I said, oh, here we go. We're going to go all the way down. So points were going to be a premium. That was also why we decided to be a little bit more aggressive going at it before half. So I had my concerns, but it ended up working out okay. We ended up getting into more of a ground control game ourselves.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. I thought the Furman game would have been more like that with the two teams and how much you each like to possess the football, but actually against Mercer, I mean, Mercer only had 7 offensive possessions that whole game. Did that surprise you when you saw that in the first possession, or did you guys have some sort of thought that it would be that type of game with little possessions?
Well, going into it is one thing that I did thought that they would do more of is run the football, run downhill, try to get downhill with their running back a little bit more, and that will naturally be a little bit more of a ball control kind of a game. However, when they came out, they threw it a little bit more. I think they ran their offense with the backup quarterback in there, which he was the starter for a whole year, so that didn't make too much of a difference for him. It's nice to have a little bit of that luxury if you are Furman. But so it did surprise me a little bit, but not too much. I thought they did a good job of moving the football, and they just, at the end of the day, they just couldn't put it in the end zone.
I asked you about this last week, but then you went out and you scored on your first possession again Saturday, so that's now 4 straight games that you scored a touchdown on your first possession, which Citadel football had not done since 2012. We know what it means for your offense to play with the lead, especially early, but what about just from a rhythm standpoint, both as a play caller and the offense, when you're able to put together a drive like that to start a day and put points on the board right away?
Well, number one is you feel good about just your game plan. You feel good about the way that your offense is handling it. You feel good about the way that your quarterback is operating at that point. And really, we had everything that we had wanted. Now we were going to move into some different parts of our game plan throughout the next couple of series, because you're always worried about the what if. What is their adjustment? What is your adjustment? It's always a chess match back and forth. In order to stay one step ahead of the chess match, you always try to go to your next plan, whether it's another formation, whether it's another play, whether it's a combination of plays. And that was the one thing that we probably got a little bit off. We were working with the tight end in the game. We were doing a pretty good job with the tight end in the game. Got off balance a little bit in the third quarter when the tight end came out of the game. So really going back to the first quarter is we probably should have stayed more in the tight end game, let them take that away from me before you move on to the next. So we felt comfortable with what was going on with the tight end game in the first quarter. Moving into the second quarter, and then we came out at the halftime to try to get away from the tight end a little bit. Unfortunately, I think going back in hindsight, that was probably the wrong move.
When you look at the stat sheet and you look at for your offense, 17 third down attempts, but you guys converted 14. You're almost perfect on third down. What went into your success on third down Saturday?
Well, we had a couple of good plays. I thought the toss play was working well for us. The toss play is one of those plays, low rep play, very inexpensive play. We don't spend a whole lot of time on it, but it can be very effective when things are getting defeated inside. I think it's one of those plays, as we talked about before, is when you do have a good passing game, that backs people off your perimeter a little bit. So on a lot of those third downs, we were converting them with just toss plays, and some of them were fairly long. We also had a couple of short ones in there where we felt like we could just hammer the ball down in there a little bit. Clay was running well. The quarterback was operating well. We were getting some good checks.
And, on first down, you averaged 6.5 yards on first down. So that obviously, I'm sure, makes things a little bit easier.
Absolutely.
And on third down, your average yards to go was about 5 yards Saturday. And that helped you possess the football in total for almost 38 minutes, I think it was Saturday. And when you look at the second half, from the end of the first half to the end of the game, the final 31 minutes, your offense held that football for about 24 of the last 31 minutes. So even with the Riley Webb fumble, which we'll get to, in the end, it almost worked out because your offense was on the field almost the entire second half.
Yeah, they had 16 defensive. They had 16 offensive plays. We had 16 defensive plays, which every defensive coordinator is going to love you for that one. So that was awesome. Of course, we did have the change of possession right there that you spoke of, but also being able to just maintain ball control was just huge in that game, and that's where the game flipped over from the first quarter to the second and to the third and the fourth quarter, where it was completely different.
I do have to ask about Brandon Rainey because he set a 50-year or broke a 50-year record there for most touchdowns by a quarterback in a single season for Citadel football. What makes him, first of all, an impressive record broken by Brandon, especially that he's done it this early in the season and after missing a game and dealing with the injury. But what makes him different or even special when you compare him to past quarterbacks you've had during your time here at the Citadel?
Different, and he's way different. So going back to Aaron Miller. Aaron Miller is, by the way, on that list from 2014. But Aaron was a very similar but a little bit different kind of guy. I only had Aaron for 1 year. Really loved the way that Aaron, I wish I had him for another year. I wish I had him for a redshirt year because Aaron had an ability to throw the football. He could find open receivers, was a tremendous runner and could operate the offense, knew all the checks and everything. We just didn't have everything in place when Aaron was here. When Dom got here, we got everything in place. The one thing that Dominique was an operator. He was going to get you yards when you really needed him to, but really when it came down to it, he was going to distribute the ball and he was going to get you into the right play. Very rarely was Dom in a wrong play. Dom was not great in the pass game, could function very effectively in it, but really, to be honest with you, his game was operation. He was going to be able to check plays. He was going to be able to find perfect plays. So we felt really good about him in there. And then when Brandon came along, it was a little bit of combination of both. He's a little bit of Aaron and he's a little bit of Dominique. He can get you the yards, very efficient throwing the ball. Number one thing that he does is he's got Riley Webb. All right, he's got a guy that can take it deep on you. He's surrounded by some pretty good ones as well. So Brandon, in his own right, can get you yards and get you first downs and get you touchdowns like he has. But he's also done a good job of finding open receivers and putting it on them.
They've both had really good years, Riley Webb and Brandon Rainey, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but the concern of everybody is this is their fourth year. Any concern that with the redshirt season next year they wouldn't be back?
No, I don't think that their thoughts are going that way. I think their thoughts are more of getting their degree here, and that was their goal from when they started here. Both of them have their undergraduate degree. Both of them have a plan to get their graduate degree in a year and a half. So they're going to have their MBAs here, I think, and they are on schedule and they're on track. They're going to have next semester, the spring semester, the summer semester, and then they'll be done next fall. So you always have that concern, of course, but to be honest with you, I think both of them are more concerned about their academics and their plan moving forward and their plan coming in here. I don't know why either one of them would. Brandon's a fierce competitor. I would love to see him finish out his competition years here, which I think he will. And with Riley Webb, I mean, Riley's got an opportunity to do something special here and be probably one of the best since Andre was here at that position and be able to do some great things. And, of course, I do think he's got an opportunity in the league if he so desires, if he keeps working as hard as he did last offseason. He will have those opportunities, and he's going to have that opportunity no matter what, no matter where he is at.
Yeah, and they're both having excellent years on the offense, leading that unit. On the other side, switching to your defense, which we've already kind of touched on, but you said going into the game, and you already mentioned it a little bit earlier about the concern over Mercer's rushing attack. but your defense held them to just 61 yards, 2.3 yards per carry. What did your defense, what impressed you about your defense being able to keep them from trying to run it down your throats?
They made him go laterally, and he is a big back. If you let him go downhill, as you saw a couple of times, he broke tackles. We had him in the backfield 1 or 2 times, and we were there to make a play, and we couldn't make a play, and he got 4 or 5 yards. But when you force the defensive line, forces those guys to go laterally and side to side, you penetrate gaps. That's what you're looking for against big backs like that.
No Marquise Blunt on the defense for Saturday. He was out, but Hassan Black filled in and had 6 tackles, tackle for a loss, and it looked like as best as he could when replacing a talented player like that, he picked up the slack for you in the linebacking core.
And Hassan has done a great job all year long. It was a true freshman for us. Unfortunately, he had to step into a starting role in more of a key position for us rather than a key backup for us with Marquise being out. So I think I think he's done a great job. He's done a great job all year long, but also he's starting to mature. He's almost a sophomore at this point for us on the field.
Do you anticipate having Marquise back this week?
No, we do not.
Phil Davis had the interception there at the end of the game. We were just talking about him last week. You had him at your press conference last week. He gets his first career interception there to seal the deal, get a nice win against Mercer. Fortunately, towards the end of that interception, comes up lame. How's Phil progressing health-wise?
Phil's doing well. He came back. He's right now. He's rehabbing it a little bit. He's getting a lot of treatment on it. A little bit day-to-day. I don't know if we'll have him this week, but there's a good chance after the bye week.
And you spoke highly of him last week, so it must have been nice to see, of anybody, Phil's the one that gets the clinching interception.
Absolutely. I wish he would have gone down before he hurt himself there, which is, I don't blame him for trying to score there. However, but the rule is in the 2-minute drill we go down so that way we get the ball back.
Yeah.
The good thing was he ran around long enough, and it took him long enough to get down the field, I guess is what I should say, that he killed enough clock for us to be able to kill it off.
Phil Davis with the interception to wrap up Saturday's win. A big play for your defense came in that fourth quarter. There were about, I think, only 6 minutes left, 28-24. You guys were in front. They were at the 41-yard line, 4th down, and Sean Thomas Faulkner came exploding in the backfield and got his second sack of the year. And even before the Davis interception, it seemed like that Faulkner sack was the one that really sealed the game for you.
Well, yeah. Well, you got to think about the series of that plays, I believe, is we had them off the field. They faked the punt on us. They throw the fade ball, and next thing you know is you're going to let down again. No, that's a big play for them. We didn't let down the next possession or the next series of plays. We get them to 3rd down, and then ST comes through with a huge one. And not only that's a 4th down play, we get the ball with an extra 7 or 8 yards gain on the offensive side. We stick one in there, and we put together a pretty good drive on the offensive side. So offensively, you're right in prime position, all thanks to what ST did, was try to create a little bit on our defensive side of the ball. Phenomenal.
Yeah, once you got it back offensively, like I said, you used up almost the rest of the game there and punched it in. Defensively, your defense leads the Southern Conference in sacks now, and that was at least one of the things talked about this offseason with the change in defense and Coach Grantham coming in, trying to make more plays in the backfield, get more pressure on the quarterback, and so far so good for your defense.
Yeah, and it was all about stick with the plan. Stick with the plan when we brought him in here. Stick with his plan, which he's done a great job. I mean, he's as competent as a defensive coordinator that there is out there. He's awesome. He works hard at it, and he usually finds a way to be able to get you negative yards plays.
Remus Bulmer with 2 more touchdowns. He's been on a roll over the past couple of weeks. How nice has it been to see him come in and not only be this productive, but also to buy into the whole idea of, I mean, he had over 2,000 yards at Sam Houston State. Now he mentioned it after Saturday's game, he's one of 7 guys in the backfield that can do it, and he's completely bought into your style of football.
It's great to see because you don't know what you're getting as a 5th year. The 2 that we've got this year, Aaron and Remus, have been awesome. They've been phenomenal when they've come from the outside, bought into the whole system of everything that we do here, and have become really great parts of our team. And we had one going all the way back. We had 2 really in 16 and in 15 and 16, we had Mario Cooper, who played a lot for us in 16, and we had Cody Clark, who was our kicker in 17. Won us a lot of football games. So when you have those impactful 5th-year guys that come in and do a good job for you, and they buy into the system, it's great to see. It's a lot of fun because you know that all the other guys are getting those guys on board in the locker room. So Remus coming in a backfield that is full of pretty good A-backs right now. They're doing a good job. Younger A-backs doing a good job. Finding his own niche. I mean, he's good on the perimeter. Doing a great job of buying in and blocking as well.
Last thing I want to ask you before we hit another break, we did already talk about Riley Webb, but 2 catches on Saturday. another one that was wiped out on the touchdown. But both catches, I mean, he makes that one-handed catch that pulled it in by the sideline, and then the touchdown that we've already referenced right before half where he goes leaping up. And from my vantage point in the booth, didn't think he had a chance to get a foot in, and he did. Only the 2 catches, but both were highlight reel type of plays.
Yeah, it's and he does it, and he does it in practice, and that was the number one thing when we moved him over. His first year, he was just an average guy. He dropped his own fair share, but he has made himself into a tremendous wide receiver, not only blocking wise, but catching the football and running. I think he's faster than he was even last year, and he's put on really solid weight. He was a guy that I think he had 12 or 13 credits to graduate last May. He was in the weight room all the time. He's not a go-out kind of guy. He is a weight room guy.
Maybe a little too fast for his own good on that one where it hit him in the helmet.
He told me he thought it was going to be underthrown. He realized that it was a little bit more than he thought it was going to be out in front of him. He caught up to it too far, and then he hit off the top of his helmet there.
Yeah, he made the 2 great catches, let that one bounce off the dome. But Riley Webb had another good set. Against ETSU last year, 8 catches, 116 yards, I think it was, so I'm sure he'll be ready to go this weekend.
Yeah, we had the first, I believe it was the first pass play, the second play from scrimmage. We had him all the way down to the 5-yard line because Raleigh caught about a 50, 60-yarder.
And we'll get ready for that ETSU game coming up here later on in the hour and talk more Citadel football with the head coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, here in the Coaches Show from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant in downtown Charleston on ESPN Radio, 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Mark Lee became the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq, sacrificing his life for our freedoms and his SEAL teammates. America's Mighty Warriors was born out of Mark's challenge to pass on the kindness, the love, the precious gift of human life. We honor our troops and Gold Star families by providing programs that assist recovery after injury or loss. Partner with us by making a generous donation. America's Mighty Warriors, supporting our troops and the families of the fallen.
At Ashley Home Store, we believe that wherever life's journey takes you, style can be affordable. Discover great savings and get 72-month special financing on the latest designs. Rethink, refine, renew your home with Ashley Home Store. This is home.
Charleston Crab House has been serving locals and visitors alike for the last 20 years. We have our crispy whole flounder. We have the seared ahi tuna. You name it, in the seafood business, we have it.
Be sure to stop by the Tiger and Leaf Lounge whenever you visit our locations. We have many frozen and specialty drinks, awesome margaritas. One of my favorites is the Wapu Punch.
If you don't like it down in the historic district, come over to James Island, sit on the Intercoastal Waterway. It is an unbelievable view where it's southern seafood at sensible prices and a darn good time.
It's hard to get something right the first time, or even the 25th. To become an expert requires a lot of hard work. But ultimately, the more experienced you are, the better you become. The doctors and team at Roper St. Francis Healthcare are the area's most experienced. We mend the most adult hearts, we perform the most joint replacements, and we treat the most adult cancers. When it comes to what matters most, your health, choose the most experienced team. Roper St. Francis Healthcare. Experience matters.
Seals Outboard has been selling quality products for over 50 years. Products like Sea Hunt Boats with its exclusive Carolina Flare Vortex hull design for the driest, smoothest, most comfortable ride on the water. Located in Mount Pleasant and Charleston, Seals Outboard is a 5-star certified dealer for Yamaha outboards. Your boating adventures are endless in possibilities with a boat from Seals Outboard. See us at sealsoutboard.com.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Back on the Coaches Show here from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant in downtown Charleston at 17 Lockwood Drive with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, talking about that win against Mercer. And we'll turn the attention to the upcoming game Saturday against ETSU. But, Coach, tomorrow is Halloween. If I remember correctly, are you a big scary movie guy?
I do like scary movies, yeah. And I really used to enjoy them when I was younger. My brother and I used to watch them all the time, but not so much anymore.
No? Well, if you had to rank Halloween with Michael Myers, okay, Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees,
yep,
Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy Krueger,
yep,
what would be the order of those three?
Jason, Michael, Freddy.
Jason first, okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Michael Myers would be first for me, and then Jason and Freddy. What was your favorite scary movie growing up?
I believe it was Silent Night, Deadly Night was one of my favorites. For some reason, my brother and I would love that one. Watch it. That was kind of like right in our wheelhouse. It wasn't until we got older that we got to kind of like more of the classics. You know, Friday the 13th was always that. I mean, there's so many of them. They kind of wore out after that. Oh, yeah. Halloween. I think I've really only gotten through one or two of those. By the time they got to what they've got right now, I'm out of the Halloween phase. So it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Huge fan of maybe the first one of those. That was always a good one. But for some reason, Silent Night, Deadly Night always sticks in my head for some reason.
I don't even know that one. I'm going to have to go search that one out. Favorite, I think I asked you this last year, but favorite Halloween costume as a kid that you dressed up as?
I was the Tin Man one year.
Oh, that's right.
And my mother saved these huge tomato cans. And it was really, she did a wonderful job. My mother's here tonight, actually. She did a wonderful job. However, the only thing that we didn't take into account was how I was going to bend and move because the cans were right around my knees and we had no joints at that point. So I really had to be carried around everywhere.
That's funny. I do remember that from last year. What's your favorite candy? When you show up at the door as a kid for trick-or-treating, what did you hope they would have on the other side of the door?
When I was a kid, it was Three Musketeers bar. When I got older, it was a Snickers bar.
Snickers, okay. Interesting, the change. Getting back to football. Those were the Halloween questions I had for you. Getting back to football. And
I don't like candy corn, by the way.
Oh, no?
One of the worst candies ever made.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, it makes me sick to my stomach.
Oh. Did you see the candy corn on the pizza? That's new this year.
No, I can't do that.
I can't do that either. I do like candy corn, but not on my pizza. I'm one of the few. I'm in the minority of the candy corn lovers. Getting back to Saturday, with that win against Mercer, there was a cool moment, not only the win, of course, but I think it was after the first quarter where one of your linemen there, Therese Drayton, was surprised with his father surprising him on the field. Were you aware of that was going to okay.
Yeah, I was.
What was that like?
I didn't tell anybody. It was kind of neat. I was going to see how this thing was going to go down here. John had given me a little bit of a heads up on it, actually leading up to the show the week before. And I said, yeah, that would be kind of neat. I had met Teresa's dad once before, stationed down in Savannah, and I knew that he had been away. I didn't know how long he had been away for. So when it was pitched to me a few weeks ago, I thought, man, this is a great opportunity. I see these things all the time. I mean, you see it on NBA games and you see it everywhere else. I said, yeah, I think that would be neat to have one of our guys be a part of, and really for us being the military school that we are, I thought it would have been a really cool thing for us. So it ended up being a neat little deal, and especially for a local guy.
Yeah, it was very cool for sure, and a nice moment at the stadium. Some questions that came in from listeners and fans. Christian asking on Twitter, with Raleigh Webb being so effective in the pass game, how does that open things for Ryan McCarthy? Does he get more opportunities in the pass game moving forward?
Yeah, Ryan is it's so hard to be able to double coverage a guy, eliminate a guy, just because when you do that, you're going to take away a little bit out of your run game. Even if you try to man your best person up, we can take advantage of that in the run game as well, because now your eyes are off the quarterback, your eyes are off the football. We could try to get 2 for 1. So it becomes very difficult. you noticed Furman paid a lot of attention to Raleigh. They weren't going to let Raleigh beat them. So, yeah, that would open up a little bit more for Ryan in that case. But it helped us in the run game that day, and really when we needed the run game. So that's where you notice it a little bit more.
The other question, too, was I believe we've seen Sam Llewellyn lined up as a receiver on the outside before. Would Remus Bulmer, if he hasn't already, would he get opportunities with his pass catching the last couple of weeks to be lined up outside?
Yeah, we typically do line up an A-back out there every now and again, depending on whatever A-back is in the game. It opens up a little bit of different options. It spreads the field. It puts your two wide receivers on the same side of the field, and that helps you in other ways. It helps you in the pass game, but also helps you with a little bit more bigger run game guys in there. So the only thing with Remus being out there is Remus is a little bit of a smaller target than Raleigh. I mean, Remus is probably about my height, about 5'5" or so, and Raleigh's about 6'2" out there, so it's a little bit different. It's hard to find in the pass game a little bit.
Question came in from Sid 1990 asking about the triple option, where in years past the yard distribution was a little bit more even between maybe quarterbacks, A-backs, even B-backs. This year, obviously, Brandon Rainey has been the heavy runner for this offense. For this type of offense that you run, is there any sort of difference in terms of who gets the carries and the yards? How does that work from a year-to-year basis, game-to-game basis, or even just the decisions made during the plays by the quarterback on the field?
Well, we go into every game thinking about, okay, well, what if they take this away? What does that open up for you? What if they take that away? What does that open up for you? So, the yards do get distributed really, really flat in our offense. Typically, you should have about a 1,000-yard fullback or a combination of their 1,000 yards in your quarterbacks or a combination of, and then about 800 apiece, about 1,600 in all your A-backs combined. If you're doing that, you're doing fairly well. That was kind of like the Paul Johnson standard. That's what he used to say. So it's a little bit different for our offense in the way that our offense has kind of been manufactured over the course of the last year, maybe a year and a half or so, is we've had to adjust and adapt to a few things. When you're in a league for 6 years, they start to figure out ways to play you, and you got to play fundamentals against people. So you don't always have every single play that you would like to have available. So we always find ways to be able to run the veer. We always find ways to be able to run the quarterback or run the fullback, and it's depending on day to day and scheme to scheme and really personnel. Is if your B-backs are out, you got to find a way to move with your A's and your Q's. You got to find a way if they're hammering you inside a little bit to get the ball to the perimeter, and then even use your wide receivers as runners. You got to find a way to reverse the ball a couple times and just keep them honest on the backside. So very difficult question with our offense. It's just nice that it's like Mike Leach said about the spread offense is. Spread balance is they're going to throw the football a lot, but they're going to throw it to a lot of different people. Same thing with us is, we're going to spread the field. We're going to run the ball a lot, but balance for us is more about just who we're getting the ball to.
Yards are yards. At the end of the day, does it make a difference to
not
you
to me.
in the offense? Yeah,
no,
right.
I'm not even a big stat guy. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they are. That's for other people to figure out. I kind of look at it at the end of the year just to find out where we were and where we kind of land and where we need to be and where we were in relation to everybody else. Would I love to win the rushing title every year? Of course. Is that reality? Probably not. It doesn't matter to me as long as we have the wins and losses.
Last fan-submitted question was about the defensive line, which has been performing well, but specifically noticing on Saturday against Mercer, it seemed like shuffling a lot of guys in and out as the game went on. Is that just to keep them fresh?
Yeah, if you looked on the other side of the field, Mercer was shuffling 4 or 5 new guys at a time, so we didn't shuffle as many as those guys in there. However, with different personnel groupings, you'll see different defensive linemen in there. So the thing that I love about what Tony does is he's got pass rushers. He's got run stoppers. He's got different personnel for each thing that goes on out on the field. And when you can do that, you actually maximize all of your numbers. You maximize more of your scholarships, and you maximize more of your body types and personnel.
We will take our final break, and then we'll get ready for the ETSU game on Saturday with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, after we return after this from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant here on ESPN Radio, 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
We make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza. We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Mark Lee became the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq, sacrificing his life for our freedoms and his SEAL teammates. America's Mighty Warriors was born out of Mark's challenge to pass on the kindness, the love, the precious gift of human life. We honor our troops and Gold Star families by providing programs that assist recovery after injury or loss. Partner with us by making a generous donation. America's Mighty Warriors, supporting our troops and the families of the fallen.
At Ashley Home Store, we believe that wherever life's journey takes you, style can be affordable. Discover great savings and get 72-month special financing on the latest designs. Rethink, refine, renew your home with Ashley Home Store. This is home.
Charleston Crab House has been serving locals and visitors alike for the last 20 years. We have our crispy whole flounder. We have the seared ahi tuna. You name it, in the seafood business, we have it.
Be sure to stop by the Tiger and Leaf Lounge whenever you visit our locations. We have many frozen and specialty drinks, awesome margaritas. One of my favorites is the Wapu Punch.
If you don't like it down in the historic district, come over to James Island, sit on the Intercoastal Waterway. It is an unbelievable view where it's southern seafood at sensible prices and a darn good time.
It's hard to get something right the first time, or even the 25th. To become an expert requires a lot of hard work. But ultimately, the more experienced you are, the better you become. The doctors and team at Roper St. Francis Healthcare are the area's most experienced. We mend the most adult hearts, we perform the most joint replacements, and we treat the most adult cancers. When it comes to what matters most, your health, choose the most experienced team. Roper St. Francis Healthcare. Experience matters.
SEALS Outboard has been selling quality products for over 50 years. Products like Sea Hunt Boats with its exclusive Carolina Flare Vortex hull design for the driest, smoothest, most comfortable ride on the water. Located in Mount Pleasant and Charleston, SEALS Outboard is a 5-star certified dealer for Yamaha outboards. Your boating adventures are endless in possibilities with a boat from SEALS Outboard. See us at sealsoutboard.com.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Back at the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant in downtown Charleston at 17 Lockwood Drive, wrapping up the coaches' show tonight with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, getting ready for Saturday's game at ETSU. 3:30 kickoff. Coverage will begin locally on the radio network at 1:30. I did remember, before we get to the Buccaneers, I did remember my other question regarding Halloween. Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. How would you rank the 3 holidays?
Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas.
Okay.
Least favorite Christmas.
Really?
Too much hubbub around it for me. It's recruiting. Too much going on for me. There's a lot of stress in the world around that.
The holiday.
Too much time off, too. I mean, I don't even know what to do with myself at that time.
That's fair. That's fair. And the Christmas music begins on Friday after Halloween, so it's already starting up. All right, looking forward towards ETSU and Saturday with that road game. This is a team that won the Southern Conference's share of the SoCon last year. This year, they're now still looking for their first win in the SoCon. 1-4 in one-score games this year, so a lot of close losses. Their record may not indicate the ability and talent that they have on that team, but what has been the biggest difference for this ETSU team when you watch the film compared to the team that was in first place a year ago?
Well, number one, I think they missed the quarterback. Austin Herink was a very, very good quarterback. Just something that you liked about him is he was able to make plays. He wasn't always not the flashiest of guys, but man, they either rallied around him or he made plays. He knew what to go. He was very good with the football. They were very methodical with the ball. So I think it all starts with the quarterback. They are still very talented. If the new quarterback ever figures it out, and he'll get older and he'll get better and he'll figure out the offense a little bit more, they'll be dangerous again because they've got good personnel, good wide receivers, good running back, big on the offensive line. They want to run the football. They almost want to play the same game that you do. They want to be ball control, and everybody knows their defense is good.
On the road, a team that when you look at, on the paper, like I said, 0-5 in the conference, so they have nothing to lose, but they're still a better team than the record indicates. You have finally a bye week coming up next week. How do you make sure that the guys aren't overlooking ETSU and not looking to the bye week next week, making sure you take care of business Saturday?
Well, number one is that we talked about it. We talked about the VMI effect. It's like, hey, if you don't watch these guys, they're going to get you. I warned that VMI was a very good team. Well, ETSU is just as talented of a team. Now, VMI beat them in a very close game, in an overtime game. But really, to be honest with you, I think ETSU's played some really good opponents. They played Wofford top in the league. They played Chattanooga top in the league, and you played some really good in-conference opponents yet. So they've played a tough in-conference schedule. So you can't take these guys lightly. They're still got all the talent to beat you.
What makes their defense so tough this year?
Well, they got two defensive ends that are probably the best in the league, and very good football players. Have been around for a while. This is their fifth year. Both of them, they've been playing together for a long time. They've got a couple of good linebackers. They've got a younger linebacker inside that does a good job. And I think, number one, I think the defensive coordinator knows what he's doing. I've had a lot of respect for him. I think he's done a great job against us. Has a good understanding of our offense as well as his own defense.
I was going to ask you because statistically they've been much better against the pass than the run. Not that they're bad against the run, but as he just said, he seems to have a good plan and knows what to do against you guys. I was going to ask if you liked this matchup for your offense against that defense.
No, I don't, because I've got a good sense of what he likes to do. I've got a pretty good idea, and he presents a lot of challenges for you. So when you look at him, if you just look at his raw footage of what he does against you, you know that he's got a good understanding of your offense.
You brought up the changing quarterback for them. Trey Mitchell is the new quarterback, and you already kind of touched on it, but what does he bring to the table that your defense will have to deal with on Saturday?
Well, he can throw the ball, and he's got open receivers, and he's got very good wide receivers right there. You've got to force him to get your eyes back on the rush again. Will be the number one thing, and then they've got their changeup where they'll bring in the Wildcat quarterback, and he'll do a good job of running the football downhill and make it a little bit more of a quarterback threat game, as Trey is not a big quarterback threat to run.
Their leading receiver is a tight end, which I think is the first team where you're facing this year where their leading receiver is a tight end. Does that change anything defensively? How do you feel your defense matches up with a tight end that can catch the ball so well?
Yeah, they've got two tight ends. One's very good, probably best tight end in the league by far. Does a great job. So it presents a little bit more challenges for you because they do run the ball so well, and they will try to run the ball downhill that they can get their tight ends open.
You went into that building and won there 2 years ago. It's a bit of a long trip there, as most are in this conference. But what is it like playing in that stadium, in that environment?
We played homecoming there, I believe, a couple of years ago. It was fairly early on in the year. It was a warm day out there. I thought they had great fan support. I don't know if it's still like that 2 years later, but they had great fan support. The fans are right on top of you. It's something that I really liked about their visitor side. The field is sunken a little bit. The fans are fairly close. It's a tight sideline right there. They'll do a little bit of heckling right there, so it's a pretty cool environment. I think they did a great job of building the stadium, other than the changing areas.
The bye week coming up next week, I know as a coach you never look ahead, but after this ETSU game, would a week, maybe it depends on what happens Saturday, would a week off, is this coming at a good time after this weekend?
I think being that we've gone for 10 straight at that point, and you've been practicing for 3 or 4 weeks prior to that, I mean, you're 14 straight weeks. I think they are ready for it no matter what. You hope that you can sustain momentum during it if you do have that momentum moving into that. So that'll be the deal. We're still going to practice as if we're preparing for a game. We're going to go at it pretty good Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. But they're going to need some time. They're going to need a break, and everybody needs to get away from each other, I think.
Got about 60 seconds. I always end the show each week asking you, What are your keys to going there Saturday and coming away with a victory?
What we didn't do last year, especially what we didn't do on offense last year, and that was we moved the ball. We didn't rush for very many yards. We moved the ball between the 20s. We didn't put it in the end zone. We turned the ball over. Defensively, the same thing as we did. What we didn't do last year, we need to do this year, and that is create shorter fields. We had no short fields. We had our own game plan used against us as they were going to play field position. They were going to make you drive the football, and we couldn't get off the field on defense. So once again, you need shorter fields, and you need to be able to sustain drives and put in the end zone.
Well, Coach, as always, we appreciate the time and all the answers and responses tonight. We wish you and your family a happy Halloween tomorrow, and we wish you the best of luck Saturday at ETSU.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, who we will catch up with this place next Wednesday for the Coaches Show, and we will see him and everybody else Saturday at ETSU. 3:30 kickoff. Coverage will begin at 1:30 locally here on the Citadel Radio Network. I hope everybody has a great Halloween. We'll talk to you from Marina Variety Store Restaurant next Wednesday, and from Johnson City, Tennessee, with kickoff 3:30 on Saturday. 1:30 coverage begins on the network. For the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, I'm Luke Morrow, wishing you a happy rest of your night from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant here on ESPN Radio, 94.7 FM and 910 AM.